So Olson comes in 1957. He's sitting at Fort Square, 28 Fort Square, and working on the poetry and immersing himself in the history of Gloucester. So what gets announced in December of 1962, 5 years after Olson arrives, is that there's going to be a stamp which is going to be issued in Gloucester celebrating a painter. And the painter is Winslow Homer. And Olson was so furious that Winslow Homer was going to be celebrated in a commemorative stamp and not Fitzhenry Lane, that he wrote a letter to the editor, his first letter, and it's called A Beef About Homer Stamp. And I'll read a little bit. Editor, Gloucester Times. What would be much more interesting than all this frou-frou about Winslow Homer and that stamp, at least to one who has lived in the 20th century and not off the fat of that fat-headed America, anyway, of the late 19th century. And he goes on to talk about...
Can you imagine? I mean...
And he says here, he says, and he talks about...
a saint, Winslow Homer, saint.
What also he talks about, you have a stamp about Winslow Homer. What about Marsden Hartley, a great painter who came here? And then he says, what also irritates in these sudden humpings of boring local patriotism, Homer loves Gloucester, Gloucester loves Homer, etc., is like that somebody who was a Gloucester painter and distinct by that term. Oh, I won't mention his name. And of course, it's Fitzhugh Lane. And so here is the first letter to the Gloucester Times, and he says, what is this? A Winslow Homer stamp? And he goes on in the letter to talk about why Winslow Homer is not significant to Gloucester. And he talks about how Homer sentimentalized Gloucester in his paintings. He sentimentalized marine life. He sentimentalized, and he talks about artists like Fitz, at that time it was Fitzhugh Lane, who painted what was in front of our faces. And that begins a whole series of letters that Olson wrote.
That are right in front of your face.
Yeah, it's really amazing. So, how many ways can value be allowed to be careless with and Hagstrom destroy? Hagstrom was the builder who tore the house down. And then Olson lays it out. Oh, city of mediocrity and cheap ambition, destroying its own shoulders, its own back, greedy present person stood upon. Stop this renewing without reviewing. Loss, 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 no gains. Oh, moan, stop this total loss of surface and mass. Putting bank parking places with flowers. Space is dead, so dead. And then he goes on to talk about all these things that happen in Gloucester, and he says Main Street is getting banker good in sunlight. A swimming pool is now promised where Solomon Davis sat beside the Dale House. I'm sick of caring, sick of watching what known or unknown was the ways of life. I have no vested interest even in this which makes life. Moan nothing. Hate, hate, hate. I hate those who take away and do not have as good to offer. I hate the carelessness. He goes on and says, bemoan a people who spend beyond themselves. If this isn't relevant to what we're living through today.
A scream to the editor. Now, this just shows you how important it is for a community to own its own newspaper. Who owns the Gloucester Times now?
God knows.
I am not a poet, okay, but I am something, I guess I'm a bit of a philosopher. To say that the polis is about self-government of, by, and for the people, in Lincoln's immortal words, is to elevate the matter of art, culture, writing, and thinking from its cellar in private and privatized life. It is to bring up geography, history, anthropology, music, mathematics, literature, art, all forms of work, and so on. To have a space to be in, to act and speak in, can be imagined in all its forms, For organization is our concern, just as addressing organization in all its forms is our concern. Give me a solid place to stand, and I will move the world. This archaic statement from ancient Greek times attributed to Archimedes conveys something deep and essential about human existence and power. It is related by a kind of inversion to Socrates, who came at this from the opposite direction. The stingray of thinking left one standing still, motionless on the ground, in awe of the world. Moved by the world, yet motionless. Unable to move, one was left only to think. To move the world, to be moved by it without moving. Here are two primal and archaic, forever contemporary potentials. One would have to say from where we stand that we, the people, as in each of us distinctly and altogether, are losing these great animators of soul, truth, and life. We are thoroughly immobilized, and it would seem thoroughly unmoved by the world. This is the importance of Olson, I think. We have fallen not into the world, but into the abyss of ourselves, unmoved by the need to attend to the world we are in, and in which we have played such a great role. This is not by chance, and to a very great extent. It is not even our doing, though we are responsible for it. Okay, I think I jump ahead. Is that okay?
Sure. I think the last two paragraphs are.
All right. Okay. Well, you told me to read the whole section.
Oh, I did. You read it if you want.
No, I don't want to.
To be moved or to move.
Okay. To be moved or to move is not the same as to be with. Who are we with? Do we respond to those around us, with us? Do we think about what we share and how we share it? What is it that we share? Friendship is in many respects our most profound experience, and it is there in friendship that we can begin to see what a polis truly is and could be. It is not merely contesting each other or striving for excellence, though these play a role. For the space of appearance, the space of action and speech, is part and parcel of remembering, of experiencing all that is around us. This requires love for plurality and so the world. This is not easy. Here, art, writing, and culture, if they are not about entertainment and commerce, about making one's way in society, can build our capacity. They can be a mode of relating to each other that takes its cues from friendship, from engaging each other as separate, related, and different people committed to each other in mutual support and protection. When Rosa Parks, following less known actions of others, refused to be humiliated and was willing to be arrested for this, a spark was lit that animated a country and a world. For finally she asserted what she had in common. This is really important. She asserted what she had in common with many, many others. While she acted alone, she acted into the web of relationships. This changed every constellation. She showed how to take ownership of public conditions. This is from refusing to move, sit where she was told to sit in a bus. The whole Montgomery bus boy, one of the most important political events of the post-war era. She acted and spoke, quotes, into a web of living presences, one she was deeply aware of, more aware perhaps than many have even realized. Countless people like her, before and after, acted this way, both preceding her, making her deed possible, and following her, making new deeds possible. The frustrations and sufferings of neighbors, strangers, and friends had built and finally led to action and speech, to non-cooperation with the lie, to resistance to the lie. Each person who creates something, who seeks to speak and be heard, to see and be seen, to be encountered and to encounter, has this power. Each of us have this power. In exercising it with others, one affirms and carries the polis, the space of appearance, to rejoin others in deed and word, to update and rethink a polis for new conditions. Such an activity begins with words and with actions. It is there that the life of the people resides and can begin anew. Thank you.